Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy, and welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health, one topic at a time. So, today I just wanted to talk about some questions that came up with the intermittent fasting. And first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. Thank you to those of you who subscribed. I really appreciate the feedback, and it's been so nice to get people's questions and be able to think through this. And I've kind of been able to remember what my experience was like early on. So first of all, my usual disclaimer, I'm not recommending intermittent fasting to anybody individually. I'm not making any medical recommendations on this channel, but I'm rather wanting to help you with, first of all, what my experience was like and to get some information so that you can have this conversation with your own provider. So one of the questions that came up in several different ways was, what happens if you're intermittent fasting and you have a day where you have to either eat in a very, very short window, or you're going to have to extend your eating window past your 8 hours. So, for example, what this looks like is, let's assume that you are doing a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window in a given day. So that's a 16-8. And let's say that eating window starts at 11 a.m. So you typically will break your fast at 11 a.m., have something to eat, and then have the last thing you eat, your last meal of the day, ending no later than 7 p.m. But for whatever reason, there's a day coming up where, you can start eating at 11 a.m., no problem. But dinner is going to be very delayed for some reason. You've got a period of time in between where you're not really going to be able to get something to eat. So therefore, you have to choose between either you're going to only eat from 11 to 2 and be very hungry, or you're going to stretch out that eating window and it's going to be past 8 hours. So what do you do there? So I have a two-part answer for this question. And the first one that I want to focus on is what worked for me and what I would recommend if you are new to intermittent fasting. Because when you're new at something, there's just, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to make it any harder on myself, because I think early success is just really important in terms of predicting whether you'll continue to do it. So, in my opinion, I think it is better to make sure that you have 16-hour fasts, even if it means that you have a longer eating window one of those days. So what I mean by that is, in the situation I just described, I would go ahead and break my fast at 11 a.m. like I always do, because I'm typically hungry when it's time. But then knowing that I couldn't eat until much later and have a late dinner, let's say dinner doesn't finish till 9. So now I've had a 10-hour window, really, where I've been eating. Even if I didn't eat a lot, that's still a 10-hour window. I wouldn't worry about it, but I then would do a 16-hour fast afterwards. Okay, so that one period of time you extended the eating, but you still get the benefit of a 16-hour fast. Now, yes, that's 9 o'clock at night, so that means you're not going to eat till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But I found that worked for me early on. The other thing I think that is totally acceptable early on is you can pick, 5 or 6 days a week. I picked 6 days a week. That I held myself to the intermittent fasting. So you can pick one day where you're not worrying about it at all. And I didn't find it had any impact on me at all. And it really helped me because I could always just not worry about it one day. I think that works just fine too. I have heard plenty of people do 5-2. So 5 days a week they're doing this and 2 days a week they're not, and they've had good success. I personally haven't done it that way, but it seems to me that if you are disciplined about it, 5 days a week, and on the seventh day, providing you're not, the other 2 days, providing you're not like just eating donuts 24 hours a day, I think you'd probably be fine. But, intermittent fasting, you can sort of see what works for you. You can try this, try that. There's no time limit on learning and figuring out what works and tweaking it. And I think I said in my earlier video that this is only one thing that I do. So I think that if you want to advocate for your own health, you commit to be a lifelong learner, and you're always tweaking things. So that's what I would do early on. I would just go ahead and not worry about that. I would have a longer eating window than I had planned, but then I would still try to get the 16-hour fast in afterwards. Now, that's my answer for when you're new. So what about when you're more seasoned at intermittent fasting? I am. Nowadays, I do an 18/6. So I eat in a 6 hour window typically, and I fast for 18 hours. So my eating window looks like 11:30 to 5:30 or 12 to 6. And then the other 18 hours I'm fasting. So when I have this kind of thing come up now, honestly, I'm so used to intermittent fasting, and it's just, I don't really find it's hard anymore. I rarely find that I have to look at the clock and realize that I've got some time to wait when I'm really hungry. So I'll do one of two things. And this does happen to me with some frequency. So let's say on Friday we often have dinner with friends, and then that requires everybody's off of work and whatever time everybody can get together. And Friday tends to be a late dinner. So what I do is, let's say Thursday evening, I stopped eating at my normal time, like 5:30, and so that would mean that by Friday morning I could go ahead and eat 18 hours later. That would be 11:30. But what I'll do is, if I'm not particularly hungry, I'll try to wait. I'll try to push that off a little bit. Okay, I'll try to hold it off. So maybe I won't eat until 12:30, or maybe I won't eat until 1. And then I'll still be in a 6 hour window with dinner or close to it. And then again, I don't, that's 1 day a week. So if I'm slightly off 1 day a week and I'm very disciplined the other 6, I try not to worry about it too much. I will say that also there are times, just like when you're on any kind of an eating plan, a timing plan, that some days you're more hungry, some days you're less hungry, you eat less. When you're more hungry, you eat more. I have times like that too with intermittent fasting now that I'm so used to it. And if I'm not particularly hungry, I don't eat on any day, even if it is time to break my fast. I'll hold it off anyway. And then there are times when, I might have maybe once a month, one meal a day, and that's it. So it's a much longer fast. So when you get more seasoned at this, these kinds of things don't really scare you so much or throw you. Now, I think that if this is happening a lot, like maybe you have a busy travel schedule and you're just going to be all over the place all the time and time zones are changing, one thing you might consider is that there are different forms of intermittent fasting. And one form is time restricted eating that I have focused on, where you do the 16/8 or the 18/6, where it's a certain number of hours a day where you're fasting, and then there's the window that's left over is the time where you can eat. But there is another form of intermittent fasting that is not called time restricted eating, and it is where you actually fast. I think it's harder, but plenty of people love it. It's where you fast, you do a very restrictive fast 2 days a week, and then the other 5 days a week you don't worry a thing about it. So there might be 2 days a week where you eat 500 to 700 calories. It's quite low. And some people just don't eat at all. They're not consecutive days, so you can pick whatever days they are. And then the other days of the week, you don't worry about intermittent fasting at all. So instead of time restriction, it's just a severe caloric restriction 2 days out of a week that, again, are not consecutive. So that is something you might think about. I don't personally have a lot of experience with that. I have a little. I have chosen at times to just pick 1 day a month to do that. I've done it. I will say that you have to be very efficient with your calories. So I placed the meal, the times that I've done that, at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It's a lot of greens, maybe just the slightest bit of olive oil, a piece of salmon that's broiled. It's really almost no carbs, maybe a hard-boiled egg a little earlier in the day to hold you. But I found it hard. I'm sure if I got used to it, maybe it wouldn't be that bad, but I just don't have a whole lot more experience than that with it. The other question that came up repeatedly was, what about exercising? So I'm going to say the same kind of answer I did before, which is that if you are a beginner with intermittent fasting, I think you should just do what works for you with exercising, okay? Because I think that when you try to change too many things at one time, or you're too overzealous, if that's going to mean that you don't do this and you just fail at it, it's not really helpful to you. So I don't see anything wrong with deciding that you're just going to exercise a little later in the day because you don't want to exercise on an empty stomach. However, I think there is something to work toward. I exercise fasted, always. I actually always have. So even before I did intermittent fasting, I used to get up in the morning, put my workout clothes on because I always felt like if I got in the workout clothes right away, it was more likely that I would work out. Now, of course, days that I was actually working, I couldn't do that. So I'd have to discipline myself to do it after work because we work so early in the morning in the operating room. But when I could, I have always exercised first thing in the morning to just check it off the list. So I was always exercising fasted. It's not really that much different to exercise after a longer fast. I've found I think that it is an extra benefit in terms of the fat burning because now if you are, let's say, 12 hours into your fast, some point thereabouts you've shifted from glycogen metabolism into fat burning. You've used up your glycogen stores and now you're burning fat. So if you're going to, on top of that, do some exercise, you're really going to ramp up the fat burning. I have always felt that that was very beneficial. I certainly drink a lot of water when I'm doing that, but I do it all the time. And I do it after, like I said, I do 18-hour fasts. So I'll stop eating at 5:30 in the evening. I get up about 5:45 in the morning. I'll exercise and then I still have to go until 11:30 or close to noon before I eat again, and I'm so used to it, it isn't bothering me. So at some point I think I might do a video, if I keep getting the engagement on intermittent fasting, where I talk about what to start tweaking as you get more experienced with it. So I hope that answers those couple of questions. I really want to thank people who have subscribed. I hope that if you haven't, you'll consider subscribing. And until next time, thanks. Bye-bye.